So here's Nia's. This is the thread that I wanted to do, which kind of, and then I'll compare it to my little budget here. So she says here, have done this before, but let's do it again. Government produced CPI or inflation rate is just propaganda. Government weighs. Have you heard the way they weigh these baskets, the product in the basket for inflation, using an unrealistic methodology to conclude if prices are going up or down?
Negative.
You ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
So there's the baskets, like it's rent and mortgage and stuff, household items, food, and like basically your expenses, your monthly expenses in baskets. First, we should establish the amount of money you have to spend each month. So here she gets into the same thing. Let's make this easy and generous. You earn $65,000 a year, which is a tad above the average, and pay 20% income tax. Your monthly net income is $4,300. So she just confirms all those numbers.
Net
here.
is like after taxes.
Yeah. Is that right? Do you have a mathing calculator there?
No, I believe I do have a calculator, but
can you double check some stuff along the way here? Or?
My fucking dominant hand is broken.
Oh, you're. I forgot you're still injured. So 4,300 times 12, it's 51,600. Yeah, I guess so. So 4,300 divided by 4, let's say. So yeah, it's like 1,075 a week, pretty much. So your first cost is shelter and all things associated, insurance, fees, repairs, etc. The CPI weighting says your total shelter cost is 29% of the basket. Insurance, mortgage, repairs is 29%. If you make $4,300 a month, that is $1,247 in shelter. Does that sound right? So does that sound right to you that all those costs is for shelter? It's much worse if you rent. The government concludes that it is in its weighted basket of measures in the cost of living, rent only accounts for 7.37 of its basket. Now that's very strange. I don't understand this, how they can get this so off. At $4,300 a month income, the government is concluding in its CPI rate that you only spend $317 each month on total rent costs. In its CPI basket, the government gives all food spending a value of 16.7%. At $4,300 a month, that means you spend $717. I'm going to round up on these numbers here on all food each month. Grocery, takeout, etc. No booze, no cleaning supplies, no pet food, just stuff to eat. That seems high, but more accurate. Underclothing and footwear. Underclothing. The CPI weighting applies a weight of 4.5%, so $195 per month. So for transportation, 16.9%, that gives you $726 per month. For healthcare, dentists, doctors, therapy, toilets, toiletries, all that kind of stuff, 5%. So that's $227 per month. For recreation,
we're running out of money.
So recreation, fishing, tuition, textbooks, classes, TV subscriptions, 10% of the basket, so $441. Seems pretty high. I don't know. Household furnishings is a biggie. That includes things like cleaners, pet food, cell phone bills, internet, furniture. Government says 13% of its basket. So that would give you $559 per month. Probably close, she says. I don't know if that's close. So last metric is booze and drugs. Seriously, they have a category for booze and drugs. Government gives it a 4.2% weight. So on your $4,300 per month, it's $180. $45 a week for joints or beer and wine, weir and vine for smokes. What do you think? $45 a week for your booze and drugs?
Seems a little light.
So here she says, let's add it up. According to the government, this is the cost of living basis, $4,300 a month income. So they got shelter costs, $1,247, food, $717, blah, 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 all that right there. A more realistic way to conclude CPI is to look at what is really spent of $4,300 and weigh it accordingly. So she's saying shelter costs $2,500. So that's 58%. Food is $500, which is lower than what I have actually, and lower than what they had is 12%. Clothing, 2%, car and transport 16%, healthcare 1%, recreation 1%, household 200 5%, booze and drugs 5%. So when the government calculates the CPI and the cost of shelter goes up, which is almost 58% of monthly income, the government only gives it a value of about half that at 29%. In effect, the government undervalues the impact of inflation on shelter by 50%. So like this is a good analysis about why the CPI is so low, right? Because we've seen the rents have gone up that much. So
Yes.
so she does all the maths here with different weighing and everything of every category. I'm not going to go through all that, but sorry for making that difficult with the maths. Hopefully it checks out. Government says CPI is 2.5% year over year. But with more realistic weighting of the basket, it shows CPI missing a total of 1.5%. The realistic cost of CPI inflation is 4%. And it still seems low to her. You could go even further because within each category is many subcategories with their own weighting. So she's not going to go into this, but this is a great example. So household expenses at $559 a month, and government weighs cellular bill as only, guess how much? 1.2%. I mean, come on. Government says your cell bill is only 6.82 a month. So if they're off by tenfold, minimum tenfold on that.
They think my cell phone bill is how much? $6?
$6.82 a month, based on all these CPI percentages.
That'd be
so,
all right.
I mean, just look at her budget there, and I'm going to pull up my budget here and see if I can. I don't think I can present them both side by side.
They're almost off more like 40x on that. Not 40, sorry, like 18.
Yeah, exactly.
18.
Yeah, I just said 10 to round it up. But so here's my current Canadian monthly budget example. Can you see that? Okay.
No, zoom in.
Okay. I don't want to zoom in too far though. I'm already at 1. So I'll zoom at 155. How's that? A little better?
A little better, yeah.
So this is totally conservative averages. Like, so they talked about the rent being 2,100 average now. It's at probably the highest it's been, 2,100. I don't know if it's come down like the last couple of months, but, and then we'll just go through this quickly and I'll give you and then we can go over some of the details. So 70 for property insurance, 240 for utilities, 160 for water, 70 for internet.
Carbon tax.
What?
240 barely covers the carbon tax.
Yeah. 110 for phone, 300 for car payment, 150 for car insurance, 320 for gas of car, like that's gasoline, 800 for food, groceries, and supplies. So that gives you 4,320. So that's a pretty bare bones budget, like bare as you can get, right? And I know we can discuss some of these totals, but they match. Hers is 2,500 shelter costs, which would include some of my subcategories here. So I don't have some things in here anyways. And then that's the job income. That's the average that I came up with, which is the same as her and the other post that I read. So basically 4,150 per month is your average Canadian salary based on 65,000 with a 23% tax. So you're already 170 in the hole. Now, I mean, we could go, what do you think of this? Like, would you argue? Now, there is some things in here, like if you're paying rent, sometimes you don't have to pay utilities. So that's kind of like an iffy thing, right? If you owned this, it would be completely different. You'd have property taxes in here. You'd have a whole bunch more expenses as well. But let's just say let's do this. Let's look at what's not included in this 4,300. So this is like your base bare bones expenses in Canada. This doesn't include any cable, no dental. And if people say, "Oh, I've got dental insurance," well, I could when I had full dental insurance, I could spend my max. I would do my max like thing for dental, and that would still cost me $2,000 a year to make use of my sort of max dental thing, right? Because you have like 50% off checkups and 50% off cavities or whatever to a certain amount, and then you got all these other like percentages, but you still had to spend a lot of money on dental. So this isn't even including dental. No retirement savings, no car repairs, no parking expenses, no emergency contingency, no property taxes, pet expenses, credit card payments, travel, storage fees, medical, prescriptions, like prescriptions aren't included. No monthly subscriptions, no computer, no booze, drugs, or entertainment. So because I was just keeping it like super bare bones. So you could argue that some of this might be high, like, oh, rent, you could share a house with 4 guys like we used to do in the 90s. I think we probably paid like $300 each on that. I'm trying to remember what we
My
paid
first
per
place
month.
paid $275 each.
Yeah.
It was all right.
Utilities can be higher than what I've got here if you owned. I mean, if you owned and you had property taxes and everything in there, there's no credit card debt, the car. So, maybe you don't have a car payment. Maybe you're taking the bus instead. But like we mentioned,
well, the property tax is built into your rent if you're renting. I mean,
that's what I mean. But if you're owned, like all these things would be added. If you owned, you'd have extra additions on there, right? But you're forced with an internet now. You can't even apply for jobs without a smartphone, without internet now. You need a phone and you need an internet, basically.
Well, if you're poor, you get $10 internet, at least in Alberta.
Yeah, through who though? Like through the government, or like you got to apply through a program or whatever?
Yeah, Shauna had it when we met.
Yeah.
Yeah, for $10 a month.
So, I mean, no wonder why people are pushing back, right? I mean, this does seem to be just not sustainable, right? You can't save for anything. You don't, you're just right off the bat. You're starting off very difficult. What do you think? No feedback?
No, yeah, it's tough out there. I feel you. I mean, the $800 a month is pretty low. I mean, I guess that's for one person without kids.
The $800 for food. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like based on a single person without a family. I mean, imagine the family expenses. I mean, this is, $800 for food. That's $200 a week. Some people say you can do it for cheaper. I think Nia had in her thing for food, it was $500. I just think that's too light right now. Food has doubled in the last few years, 4 years. So I think it might have been
$1,000 a month on food, and I don't buy meat.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe it's a bit high, but I mean, you could throw, underwear and stuff like that in there. I mean, the supplies, toiletries, all that kind of stuff
too,
as well.
I mean, unless you're in a tiny little apartment, utilities are going to be a lot more. Like, I'm not joking when I say my carbon tax was $100 last year, so to be $125 a bill this year.
Yeah.
Plus the $180 delivery fee on my electricity, which is just a cover for the carbon tax that they're charging the electrical company to make the electricity with natural gas and coal, which is what we're doing in Alberta for 90% of our power. So, it's kind of like what's that? That's 180 plus 125. So I'm paying $305 a month in the winter months just on carbon tax. Let's see how much we should actually check how much, because I think I just got a bill, so we can check how much here right now. How much do you think my carbon tax is in the summer right now? So for some fucking context, I literally shut my fucking furnace off a month and a half ago. Shut it off. Furnace is off. Fireplace is off. Furnace is off, because you never know when the kids will go mess with that shit, Yeah. The kids go mess with it, and then all of a sudden it's hot in here and you can't figure out why. Or what other thing that happens is always gets kind of cold in Alberta, and then the furnace ends up kicking in, but you don't want the furnace kicking in. When it gets cold in Alberta, some of you just want it to stay cold, because once that sun comes out, it's not going to be cold any longer. I'm just logging into my my energy account to check out what the breakdown of my latest bill is, which is high. I will say that I'm always surprised at how high it could be for the dog days of summer. It used to be like $110, like almost nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is another one that they're not catching. Like, these things have gone up like 2-3 fold, and they're just saying, 2 point. They have these low percentages trying to say that's all it is.